Good morning. Hey there, Aileen here. Hello from Mujan. It is Friday morning here in Mujan and it's a little bit cold. Winter has finally set in here in Mujan, and I would say it's probably 14 or 15 degrees out there this morning. But anyway, it feels really cold. And I'm just back from a week in Singapore, so I am particularly cold, and I think, picked up something along the way because I feel so cold. My body feels so cold, and my joints kind of feel fluey. So it was a difficult transition back here to the colder weather. I'm just going to check if I am live in my group, just to make sure I'm in the right place. If you're joining me here live this morning, say good morning, say hi, say where you are watching me from. I would love to know. So just let me know. If you're watching this on replay, hashtag replay. So this morning's session is Stylepreneur's Secrets, Lessons Learned Over 2 Decades. So I'm going to be talking about starting my business and what I have learned, especially in those early years of my business, because as I said to you, I'm just back from a week in Singapore, and it was really an amazing trip for me because I got to go back and have a look at, the original studio that I rented out. So many memories came flooding back, and so many of the old stories. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to talk about some of the things that happened to me, especially in those early days, and what I learned from those, so that if you were early on in your journey, you can avoid these mistakes that I made, or at least, think deeply about what you're doing. Because sometimes when we're starting out, we are so passionate, we so want, to make a go of it, but we are so inexperienced, and people tell us stuff, and we listen to them. Sometimes we listen to the wrong people. Sometimes we don't listen to the right people who have had a business already, and we get really, really stuck. So say good morning if you're joining me. Let me know if you are starting out in your business or if you're in your business a long time. Elsa is here. Great to see you. How long are you in your business? It would be really helpful for me to know, because I started my business I got trained as a color and style consultant back in 2004. I didn't actually leave my job and actually start working as a stylist until March 2006. So one of the good things that I did, which I strongly urge you to do, is I got my training while I was still working in my corporate job. So I didn't leave my corporate job and then start training. I trained as a color and style consultant and took some of my first clients while I was still working in a corporation. And I had a great job. I had built my way up in my career, and I had started out in kind of food engineering. I started out as a supervisor in Ireland. I worked as a manager in Bahrain in the Middle East, and then I moved to Singapore in the year 2000, and I started working in a startup food manufacturing company there. It was really infant formula manufacture. So I had a really great job, and I spent 6 years in that job, 4 years in manufacturing, and then I moved into product development. So it was a massive, massive change for me when I decided to pursue personal styling, because it felt to me at the time like it was a calling, that it seemed so fun and it seemed so interesting. But I was also really, really scared because it was so different to what I did previously. And I had no experience, even though I thought, oh my God, I've just gone through a startup. I can totally start up my own business. I really had no idea. I often liken it to before you have a baby and then after you have a baby. No matter how many times people tell you your life is going to be very different, this is going to be very hard, it's hard for everyone, somehow you don't hear any of that because you are completely swayed by the passion of starting this new thing that you absolutely love. So that's kind of what happened to me. I, went my boss. We had our usual appraisal, and he was going to give me a raise, but he wanted me to then report into somebody who I didn't want to report to in work. So I took great joy in telling him, actually, it doesn't really matter anyway because I'm leaving. And I remember him saying to me, "Do you know what you're doing? This is going to be really, really hard." And I just completely thought he's just saying this because he wants me to stay. Oh my God, the innocence of youth. But in fairness, he was a very, very kind boss over the years. He was more like a father than a boss. And he told me the real story. But of course, I didn't listen. We don't listen when we're that age. So I waved bye-bye to my $10,000 a month salary. That time, back 20 years ago, I was getting $10,000 a month. And I was walking into this image consulting business, and I had no idea how I was going to make this kind of money. But somehow in my mind, I thought, oh, it will just all happen. Um, so no, it didn't just all happen. It took a lot of time. It took a lot of mistakes. It took a lot of effort. So what I wanted to do this morning is really just go back over some of the lessons that I learned in those early days. When I look back now, I mean, I wouldn't change a thing really, because I think I am where I am today because I lived all those experiences. I went through all those experiences. But if there was some, I'm coaching people who are starting out now, and I tell them these exact same things. So these are some things that you have to bear in mind. So great to see you, Rachel. Rachel is saying, I've trained back in 2006. It's been a long journey with many things happening along the way until now, and my full commitment to what I love. I mean, it's a testament to you, Rachel, that you are still pursuing this dream. And it's kind of like that, Rachel. Very few people have a completely smooth journey. I mean, I definitely had to take several years out when my boys were younger. And I really second guessed myself about going back into the industry because I had no illusions going back into the industry the second time round. So oftentimes our journey can look quite convoluted and not exactly the perfect trajectory that we thought it was going to be. Okay, so when I hit Singapore a week ago, I was too tired to do anything the first couple of days. But then once I kind of got over the jet lag a little bit, I went back to the location of the first office that I took out. When I left my corporate job, I decided that I absolutely needed a studio to start working with people. And I took out a studio in possibly one of the most expensive buildings that I could take it out on Orchard Road. So I was paying rent that time of, I think, if I'm correct, it was like $3,300 per month. Now, that is the first piece of advice I give to consultants. If there is any way that you can avoid having to get a studio or pay for a location, don't do it unless you absolutely have to, because you have to make that money back before you make a penny profit. And that is hard money to make back in those early days. I thought, oh my God, color analysis is amazing. Style consulting is amazing. People will just flock to me. People did not flock to me. I was sitting in that very expensive office for 6 months by myself, looking at the phone. Even though, I was out there and I had handed out flyers and I had done all the stuff that I was told. I was doing events, I was turning up at fairs, I was doing all the things. But that first 6 months, I had like maybe one or two clients. There wasn't that many. And yet I had this expensive rent that I had every month, which was just so terrifying, and which actually ended up getting me into debt. It ended up getting me into debt. Now, lucky, I have a very generous husband, but even his generosity ran out. So I had to go to my family and ask for a loan. So I highly recommend that if you don't need to take out an office space, do not. Run it from your home. Even see if, there's a hair salon or a clothes shop or somewhere where you can use initially if you can't use your home. But find another way which won't require you to take out an office space. I highly, strongly advise that you don't do this. Now, some people will listen to me, some people won't. Even my sister, she started a business it's a couple of years back now, but that was one of the things I said, do you really need a space? Do you absolutely need a space? Because if you don't need a space, do not take it out. Just don't. So Rami is saying Orchard is, of course, pricey, and it's even almost doubled now. I know the prices have gone crazy, Rami. We talked about it in the week that we were there. Even to just get accommodation now or to try and buy in Singapore is absolutely, oh my God, it's outrageous. So Rami is saying I work from home, and she loves her home salon. And I moved to that later, but it was tricky. It's always been tricky for me. It depends on, if you have a very organized home, if you have a very organized family. For me, working from home was always very, very tricky. So it won't work for everyone. Working from home won't work for everyone. And that's why I love the online world now, because it suits me better. I don't have to bring people into my home. I'm not disrupting anybody who is here, because everybody in your home is kind of impacted. Your children or your husband or whatever. So you have to think about that as well. So that was one of the first points that I wanted to make. The second point I wanted to make is one of the things that I had a flashback to was that I spent a lot of money on before and after pictures of clients, thinking that this was going to be the thing that's going to really help me get more clients. But they were expensive, and honestly, it is really, really hard. I want you to put your hand up if you agree with me. It is really, really hard to get good before and after pictures, because oftentimes the client is not that bad to begin with. I mean, and I definitely see myself doing it now when I see people posting before and after pictures. I'm kind of looking and thinking, oh my God, they were kind of fine beforehand. And yes, you have dolled them up a little bit, and you have given them new clothes and they look better. But overall, like, anyone could do that. So I want you to be careful with before and after pictures. I did have them on my website, but how much business they actually got for me, when I think of how much I actually paid to get these before and after pictures, and the trouble and the time that it took me to create these. So I'd be more inclined to go with, a video testimonial from your client, or, a written testimonial from your client talking about their experiences and the difference it made in their life. Before and afters. How many of you have done befores and afters of your clients, and do they work? Rami is saying her helper is very organized. Yes, you have a helper, Rami. You're very lucky. Rachel is saying, I did the same with expensive business stationery, which I didn't use. I thought making expensive steps would help me get work. I became a limited company and tried to make myself official. None of these steps paid off. Yeah. So yes, where you're spending money is really, really important. And you try and keep your overheads minimal. I agree with you, Rachel. At one point, I think I was using style guide templates at one point in my business. And because there was some kind of discounted price to get so many of them together, I ended up ordering loads of them. Sure, it took me years to use up those style guides. It just wasn't absolutely necessary. So I think especially in the early days when you don't have a huge cash flow, avoid spending money on things that are not going to get you an immediate return, even on things like fan selectors or materials like that. Oftentimes you can order directly from the supplier and get it sent to your client. So think about, how am I spending my money, and will this get me in trouble before I'm actually cash flow positive. So Romy is saying, I used to do before and after photos, but not always, as I needed to plan another appointment with clients. Written feedback, authentic enough now. Absolutely. Written feedback is totally authentic, and you don't need to stress about befores and afters. But I kind of had forgotten that I had gone to a huge amount of effort with getting pictures for befores and afters, and hiring a cameraman and having a decent location to do these pictures and all the things. Not necessary. The other point that I wanted to make here is about marketing two different businesses. Now, when I started my business was called NutriStyle, and I had a nutrition part to my business and an image consulting part to my business. And the nutrition part, I really thought was going to be my bread and butter, because that was kind of my background, and I did go back and get a higher diploma in nutrition so I could do the nutrition services. But what I realized pretty quickly was it was very, very difficult to market both a nutritional service and an image consulting service. It was really very tricky. Now I kind of get it. And now if I was doing it, I would totally have combined them into one thing. But at the time, I just didn't have the knowledge or the ability, or I didn't really know anyone that could help me, even though I reached out to several people. Funnily enough, now I help people integrate different services in their business. Romy, yes. But at the time, it was very, very tricky for me. Now, unless you have two separate marketing departments and a lot of staff, it is extremely difficult to market two different ideas. So if you have several different services, I would suggest that you try and combine them into one message, so it's easier to get your message across to people. I totally recommend that, rather than trying to market to two different people, or even market to two different clients. It is very difficult. You have limited time, you have limited resources. The last thing you want to do is confuse people. So have a very succinct message that targets one person. Your ideal client should be one person. If you did the challenge with me, not last week, the week before last, we will have talked about that. The next one, not being clear on who your ideal client was. So that leads me on nicely to the next one. So at the time, when I was starting out, I really wasn't very clear on who my ideal client was, because I just didn't have a clue. And many times when we were starting out, I really didn't know. I was coming from manufacturing. I kind of had the idea that it was other expat women, but I was kind of reaching out to everyone. And I didn't really have a clear idea in my mind who was my ideal client. I had men, I had women, oftentimes I had younger people. And again, you're creating content, and you're creating sessions for all these different people, and you spread yourself very, very thinly. So oftentimes you don't come over as an expert. So it's very, very important, as soon as you can, to really start narrowing down the person you're focusing on. Who are you focusing on? Is it, oftentimes our ideal client is someone that's very similar to ourselves. And people still struggle when I tell them that, but oftentimes our ideal client is us a bit earlier in our journey. It's us earlier in our journey when we could have done with a bit of help to look the part, or to get over grief, or to get over a divorce, or to get over whatever the thing is, to make that transition. It's true that most of our clients are going through a transition, but I think my message was something like, if you're going through a transition, so the transition could have been absolutely anything. But I think it's very, very difficult to get deep and connect with people if you're staying general, if you're staying really wide and really general. Okay, next one that I have written down here is the idea of building an email list. Now, this I did well. One thing I did very well, because there wasn't really social media when I started back in 2006. I mean, yes, you had a website. I think Facebook came a little bit later, but definitely I was not on social media every day. So the way that we built our email list and the way we got back in contact with people was, we would, do an event, a talk or something like that, and we would literally physically collect email addresses. So I would have a printout and I would send it around to all the people in the group, and they would fill in their email address. And then when I came home, I would put it myself into my database so that, I could get them on my weekly newsletter, or that time. Yeah, it was a weekly newsletter, I think. So I did that from the get-go. I was quite, I knew that, the email list was really important, and I collected those emails faithfully. I mean, it took years to build an email list. And unfortunately, somewhere in our move to France, somewhere in those couple of years that I took off from the image business, I lost that email list, which, of course, it's one of the most valuable things that you have in your business. So you should, guard your email list with your life. It is one of the most important things that you have, that's part of your business. And it's really the thing that you can sell if you decide to sell your business when the time comes. Julia is saying, interesting, because God willing, I was thinking about doing a fashion or style which they weren't into. Now they're very happy with colors with psychology behind. Okay, brilliant. Rami is saying, exactly. Some of my clients say they thought the service is only fashion or style, which they weren't into. Now they're very happy with colors with the psychology behind. Excellent, Rami. Yeah. So we need to be really, really clear in what we're providing and the problem we're solving for our client, because oftentimes they don't know what you're doing. If you tell your clients you do color consulting, they might, like, even my own family asked me, are you doing tanning, or are you coloring people's hair? Or oftentimes, even though we assume that people know what we do, our client actually doesn't know what we do, and our audience don't actually know what we're doing. And that's why it's so important to be clear in your messaging. Don't try to be complicated. Don't try to be fancy. It's not necessary. Just say it as it is. What is it that you help your client to do? Rami is laughing. Yeah, tanning. Yeah, that kind of made me laugh as well. But it also got me thinking, oh my God, how would you think that I didn't even really do makeup. I didn't enjoy makeup, so I didn't do makeup. So that's another thing, is if there's a part of your business that you don't enjoy, get somebody to help you. So quite early in the days of when I started working from my studio, I got somebody to come and do the makeup for me. She was a freelance makeup artist, and she was brilliant at makeup, and that was her thing, and she loved it. So I would bring her in to do the makeup, and then she would get a percentage of the makeup that we sold. So that was a really good collaboration in those early days, and not try to do everything yourself. Buying a full makeup range, doing all the things. To begin with, see who you can collaborate with, and maybe down the line you want to buy a makeup range. I definitely ended up selling it off because it was something that I really didn't enjoy at all. So again, you can spend a lot of money in, getting a makeup range in that you use with your clients, and then find, 6 months down the road that your clients don't like it, or you don't like it, or you don't love it as much as you thought you did. And for me, it definitely was something that I dropped. I dropped it because I just didn't really enjoy it. Um, Collaborations are really, really important. And I wanted to make that point in those early days. I collaborated with a hairstylist downstairs. Dominic was his name. From Visage. He's moved now. He lives in a different part of Singapore. But I worked with him for many years. And initially, he did my hair, and I used to be happy with him doing my hair. And then the other thing was, he was really very willing to work with me. He was really very willing to work with me with clients. So I explained to him about the color analysis. I explained to him, that I will be suggesting a warm hair color, but then that I will hand it over to his experience and his knowledge around the quality of the hair and what he could do and what he couldn't do. But that collaboration worked beautifully. And it really gave, a high-end feel to my services, which I could then charge more for. So those collaborations are so, so important. The other really lovely collaboration that I had was right next door to my office. There was a Japanese skincare specialist, and I think they also did massage there. Rami, you might know who this lady was. She was very, very famous in Singapore. She had a little studio right next to me in Delphi Orchard. So as a result, I had a lot of Japanese ladies' footfall right outside my door, and oftentimes they would pop their head in or be, trying discussing with each other, what is it that's happening in here. So one of those ladies popped in one day, and her name was Naomi. I'll never forget. And Naomi just absolutely adored what I did. So no, I don't think that was her name, Romy. She used to advertise in the Mangosteen, and she was quite famous back in 2006, maybe all the way to 2000 and I don't know 10 after that. But she was even amazing. I didn't really know her that well, truth be told, because she didn't speak English. But it was a huge opportunity for me. So that day that Naomi, one of her clients, popped her head in the door, myself and Naomi kind of started talking, and Naomi had very good English. So didn't I end up training Naomi as a color consultant? And Naomi worked with me for years, and she used to do groups of Japanese ladies who hadn't a word of English. So I used to be in the office, and there was these big, Japanese groups of ladies who were the most polite, most beautiful ladies in the world, who would come and have their colors done with Naomi. And that was an amazing collaboration. So my advice around that is to look around and see what are the opportunities around you. Those opportunities, you have to scoop them up and use them. um, yeah, Naomi Delphi, yeah, maybe it is that lady. I'm not 100% sure, but yes, Naomi left years ago. Naomi left for Tokyo. So it was just in those early years that she worked for me. But it was so amazing, and myself and Naomi were really great friends. We worked really, really well together, and it was one of those like kind of collaborations that was just a match made in heaven. I ended up training an Australian lady also, and she started doing color consults with me around 2008, I think. So those collaborations are really, really great. So those were kind of the points I wanted to cover with you, is that, those early days can be really turbulent and really rough. And try and keep your spend in those early days as low as possible. If you are to spend money, I would suggest spend money on a business coach that's going to help you get where you want to go, to get clear on your message, to get clear on your ideal client. to get clear in what you need to do, rather than spending it on things like an office or expensive stationery, like Rachel talked about, or spending it on things that just will not bring clients in the door. Rami is saying, nice, I'm motivated to go for it and talk to people for the fun collaboration. Absolutely, Rami. And it makes her business so fun, so much more fun. I love collaborating with people. Even this last challenge, I collaborated with a couple of people that I didn't collaborate with previously. And I'm going to do more of that going forward, because it's a win-win for both people involved. And that's kind of what I wanted to share with you this morning. Some of those old stories came rushing back in when I visited the old office, and I was able to take my son and show him where it all started, and when he was a baby, I used to bring him and all the rest of it. So it was a very nostalgic trip, but it also brought back some of those hard lessons that I wish I'd known in those early days. So if you are watching this on replay and if you have any questions about anything I spoke about, please just hashtag replay and ask your question. I am taking on one-on-one mentoring clients at the moment for people who are early in their business. If you're in the first year of your business and you're wondering, where can I get help? How can I sort out what my message is? How can I sort out who my ideal client is? How can I sort out, how to first of all start getting clients, and then building a business to your first 3, 5, and then eventually 10K. So that is all I have to share with you this morning. Thank you for the people who joined live, who commented. Let me see. Right, COVID enabled us for a while, but now we are all set again. Yeah. So brilliant. Thank you, everyone who joined live this morning. Have a wonderful weekend ahead. And if you want to get in contact with me for the one-on-one mentorship, it's a 6-month program. We meet every second week. It is one-on-one. You can just drop me a message and we'll take it from there. Thanks very much for listening. Take care. Bye.